Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome for the first time if you're new here. My name is Bryn, and I make videos about queer things and also like updates on my life for those of you who have been here for a while and care to know what's going on. Before we get started though, if you would like to follow me on social media, this is my username. I have a TikTok account and an Instagram account. I do not post a whole lot. I repost a fair amount, but I don't like post my own stuff very often. But I am kind of interested in maybe posting more like videos on TikTok. I don't know, sometimes it's nice. I like sitting down in front of the camera and talking, so I may be posting more on TikTok. We shall see. But without further ado, let's get started. So as I said in the beginning, I want to talk about my I guess mental like outlook on decision making and how that has changed and how I feel more comfortable making decisions now. And I kind of want to get into also like how it started with me not feeling comfortable with that and like how I moved towards a place where I feel comfortable making decisions. So for those of you who are new here or like don't remember or whatever, I was raised in the church, and I think that has had a big impact on my inability to make decisions. I was raised in a very like black and white way of thinking, which is very common in fundamentalist religion. That there are things that are good and things that are bad, and if you're not doing something that is good, then that means you are doing something that is bad, and you should feel ashamed and you should reject the bad thing. And there really wasn't a lot of room for gray area or nuance or stuff like that. And it kind of left me always feeling scared that I would be making the wrong decision. On top of that, I also, not as much anymore, but definitely growing up, I had this like people pleaser mentality. It's kind of confusing because I felt like there were kind of two versions of me growing up, especially in my teenage years, because for those of you who don't know, I don't speak to one of my parents, and I've been in no contact with them for like 10 years or something. And so my teenage years with her, I was not a people pleaser when it came to her, but there was a lot of hurt there, and I was like reacting to trauma, and so it didn't matter to me if I made her uncomfortable because she was hurting me. But when it came to like regular people, like my friends or strangers or whatever, there was a lot of like people pleasing mentality, whatever. That was just kind of how I operated. And I think maybe part of it came from like, oh, I don't ever want to hurt somebody's feelings because I know how it feels to have your feelings hurt. But I think the majority of it came from my like paralyzation when it came to confrontation. It terrified me to have confrontation, and I think that trait in itself is like a family trait of mine, because I see that in like so much of my family. I even see it in my brother, who he and I are both very like working through that kind of stuff. But I do think that there's some sort of wiring in me that makes me afraid of confrontation, or afraid of like saying something that somebody else might feel hurt by, even if it's like okay to say. Also, I just want to kind of clarify a little bit more. Like how I was saying, I felt like I had two different versions of myself. With the people pleasing, it was more like I was afraid of hurting people's feelings. That was what made me be like a people pleaser. But I wasn't really a people pleaser when it came to like how I dressed or how I acted. Like I've always been a very strange person and very like out there and not really blending in and having a weird sense of humor and like saying things that are kind of off the wall, which I know like on my YouTube videos you probably haven't seen much of my sense of humor, but like I'm a little crazy. But anyways, I just want to put that out there. Most of the people pleasing was more about, oh, what if I say or do something that would upset somebody else, like their feelings about themselves, almost like that they would feel insecure if I said something to them or whatever. I don't know. A great example of this, my first boyfriend that I had, I was not attracted to him at all. I wasn't into him, but I knew that he liked me, and I did not know how to tell him no, and I was afraid that he would think I was a mean person if I told him no. So I dated him for almost a year. But like that's, I mean, I dated somebody for almost a year because I was afraid to be like, no, actually, I'm just not interested. I thought that that was like offensive and like wrong because he didn't do anything wrong until we were already dating. But before we were dating, he didn't do anything that made me feel like whatever. And I felt like because he didn't do anything wrong, and it wasn't fair for me to say no. And so there was this like consistent like obligation that I felt that I had towards people in general, and I didn't realize that I was allowed to have my own opinions and my own feelings, and I don't actually owe it to somebody to be with them or give them my energy or my relationship or my whatever. I really felt like I owed the world every part of me. So I've had a fear of making decisions for most of my life, a very long time, because I was afraid of how my decisions could impact other people, and I felt like I owed it to other people to do what they wanted. But also I was worried about how my decisions would affect me. Growing up, there was a lot of, you know, transphobia, homophobia, whatever, and like surrounding me by a large portion of my family, and like going to the church, even if it wasn't overtly stated, which a lot of it was, there was still like undertones of stuff. And also just like most of the stuff that made me doubt myself or whatever wasn't so much like people being like, you deserve to be like, or like whatever, like horrible things like that. It was more the, you don't actually know. Like, you're not smart enough to know what you want, and you're not old enough, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not secure enough to really know what you want, and so you can't rely on yourself. And I feel like over the years, as like an adult, I've really, especially over these past few years and specifically the past few months, I've really been learning to rely on myself. And it's a very new thing for me, but I think it's a very good thing. There's a lot of queerphobia that was projected onto me and around me growing up, and it was always like framed as like this, like, well, we love you and we want you to have a happy life, and so you need to erase these parts of you because those parts are bad. And it's not you, it's just this thing that is attaching itself to you, and you need to push it away. You need to spend your entire fucking life pushing this away because it's bad. It's very bad, and you can't do it. You can't do gayness, you can't do transness because they're bad things to do. And really took out the autonomy and the fact that it is actually like a part of you as well. They really tried to separate being gay from doing gay things as a way to, like, I guess, control how queer people view themselves and stuff like that. So that was always instilled in me, that being gay was a choice, being trans was a choice, and I'm choosing to do it, and therefore that's bad, and I'm bad, and if I would just choose not to be gay or not to be trans, then I would be good. And I believed that. And it's hard to explain what that kind of like brainwashing does, especially for people who like have been accepted their whole life or like haven't been raised religious. Like, I see a lot of the time, like actually today I was seeing this video of a woman who put her son through conversion therapy, and he ended up himself. And she was, I think she was, like protesting, like now, the video that I saw, she's like protesting the Supreme Court is trying to say that it's okay to do conversion therapy. And she was there saying, no, it's not okay because this is my story and this is what happened. And like, I did that to my son, and that's like, I miss him forever. And a lot of the comments were, you know, queer people who are rightfully upset with her that like, you did this to your son and he's gone and you can never fix that. And it's hard because I feel both sides and I see both sides, because that it's horrible to put your kid through that, put anybody through that. But I think specifically it's sad to see someone who did what she believed was right and was like so misguided and so intentionally misguided by people above her who like benefit from doing horrible things to queer people, and she didn't understand the damages of it until it was too late. And I understand why people don't have empathy for her or don't feel sorry for her or, you know, whatever. But like, as someone who was raised religious, I do understand what it's like to believe the things that you're told and to genuinely feel like not questioning those things is the right thing to do. Because when you're taught that, like, if you're questioning things, you're like allowing room for the devil to show up and misguide you, is basically the like thought process. And so you think you're protecting what's holy and like perfect. You're protecting that by not questioning things or not listening to people. And it's hard because you're not actually protecting anything good. You're really hurting yourself and very likely the people around you. But I also understand it. So there is like this weird like anger and empathy at the same time, I guess, for someone like her or someone in her position. But anyways, I would say from being a child or a teenager up until maybe I was like in my early 20s, like 21, 22, 23, somewhere in that range, I was still very afraid of making decisions. And I still very much felt like a pathetic child who was incapable of really being secure, I guess. Like, I was just this like stupid, angry teenager, because that was a big thing in my family. Oh, you're just angry. Well, fuck yeah, I am angry. Of course I am. But it was like anger was seen as like this bad thing. I think what kind of changed my perspective on what started to change my perspective on myself was two things. I entered into a relationship with somebody who was older than me and had 2 kids. And so I was in a very different position in life than I was as a teenager. I was 23 when I started dating her. And I think that kind of shifted me like forward, at least in terms of like what my life looked like. It was kind of like a big jump from being a single like person to then dating someone who has 2 kids and like and that was also the first partner I'd ever lived with and whatever. So that was a big thing. And then also in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I ended up getting really spiritual, like a little too much. Like a little obsessive with spirituality. Also, my ex-girlfriend, the one that I was just talking about, was also spiritual. She gave me my first tarot reading, and I was like obsessed with crystals, and I was like learning tarot and like, you know, having candles all the time, whatever, like things that to me, like it kind of helped me connect with my feelings and my just feelings in general and intuition, because I was really, really repressed. I hadn't had bottom surgery by that point, and I'll get to that later, but prior to bottom surgery, I had a really hard time connecting with myself and with the people around me because the dysphoria was just so immense all the time, and specifically in relationships. Having dysphoria over that part of my body made physical relationships difficult for me and not very connective unless that part of my body wasn't being touched, but it was like just very confusing. So both of those things, dating somebody who was spiritual and having it be 2020 during the pandemic when I had a lot of free time, and granted I was on disability so I had more free time, but I had moved in with her and then I moved out because we like broke up for a little while, and then I moved back in, and when I was moved out I just had all the time in the world to myself and I became like very spiritual. I think becoming spiritual and like doing things like tarot or, you know, writing shit down on a full moon and burning it, or like whatever, those kinds of things did help me to connect with myself and the people around me and like have hope for my life that I hadn't had in a long time. I don't know how I forgot this, I also got diagnosed with bipolar disorder and got on medication that definitely helped me feel more hopeful as well. But I think spirituality gave me like a purpose, I guess, or made me feel like my life was going somewhere even if I couldn't see what it was doing, and like kind of, I don't know, just feeling like something more than just me, or living every day and then waking up and then living that day and like feeling kind of mundane, I guess. But I think something that I realized literally like last night, which is actually why I'm making this video, I have kind of been like, since I got into spirituality, been like, oh, like the universe wants me to do this, or the universe like will take care of everything, the universe, blah blah blah, whatever. And I think that's cool, and there's nothing wrong with believing that, but I kind of had this realization last night where I was like, what if, like, when I'm being intuitive and I'm feeling like, oh, the universe wants me to do this, or the universe is trying to tell me this, or whatever, like, what if that's actually just me? Like, I keep thinking I'm, like, listening to something bigger than me who knows more than me, and that can be really healing, and it was really healing for a long time, but it kind of made me realize, like, I'm still relying on somebody, or somebody, whatever, or something else to, like, tell me what to do, when, like, I think, ever since my realization last night, that it's actually just me. Like, I know what I want to do, I know what's best for me, and I can make decisions based on what I want, and when I'm listening to my intuition, I'm not listening to some invisible thing, this essence that just exists everywhere. It's literally just me listening to myself. And that felt really like, I was like, what? And I like texted all my friends. I'm like, oh my god, like I just cracked the code to life. Also, sorry if my voice sounds weird. I have a stuffy nose, but whatever. But yeah, I kind of had like a realization that I don't have to look to something beyond me. I can literally just look to myself, and I know what I want, and I know, like, I know what's best for me. I don't know, it just, I never really felt, like, empowered to think that I could have the answers. Also, just to clarify, I do still consider myself spiritual. I mean, granted, I just had the realization, like, a day ago, but, I still, like, believe in spirituality, and I still believe in intuition and, like, astrology and, like, all the things that there's stuff out there that we can't see. But my main purpose for, like, this section of the video is more, like, me finding that I can rely on myself, and I don't have to be waiting for something or someone else to be initiating things in my life, or like waiting to find the answers in someone else because like they're in me. And it actually, now that I think about it, it reminds me of this quote that I actually don't remember the quote, but there's this book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and I forget, like, I read most of it like a year or two ago, and I don't read, so that's a really big deal. I like hate reading. My ADHD brain, when there's too many words, I can't focus, but her book was very good, and I was very entertained and like drawn into it. But basically, the one part in it, she said something along the lines of like, God isn't around us, like we are God, or like we have God in us, or something. That sounded a lot more like spiritual, but not like religious or like stuff like that. And I forget how she phrased it, but I remember reading that, and that really kind of like hit me, and it's similar to the realization that I had last night, but I guess it just took this long for it to like really sink in. I don't know. And I think something that really helped, I got bottom surgery like 3.5 years ago, and that basically took the wall of dysphoria, burned it down, so I was able to connect with people and accept things and blah, 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 whatever. All the things that I had a hard time doing before bottom surgery in regards to, like, connecting emotionally have gotten better since having bottom surgery. Also, something that I think is relevant to this, I don't think I've talked about this on YouTube or publicly at all. So it was after I had bottom surgery, not right away, but maybe like, I want to say like in the end of 2023, 2024, somewhere in that range, maybe for like a year or two-ish, I was questioning my transition or considering, I put that in quotes, detransition. But I felt really confused because when I would ask myself, like, well, what, like, how do you want to look? How do you want to present? What do you want people to call you? Everything that I have is everything that I want. I'd be like, oh, well, if I'm going to detransition, I wouldn't want to go on T. I wouldn't want to change my name. I don't really feel comfortable with he, him pronouns. And, like, I wouldn't want facial hair and all this stuff. Like everything that a detransition would entail was stuff that did not seem appealing to me. But I had a really hard time, like, grasping the fact that it's okay to be trans and, like, not always having to, like, look back and almost, like, idealize this, like, the idea of being a cis guy, and that is, like, the ultimate truth for me, and I've strayed onto a different path. But it was really confusing for me, because I was like, why are these, what are these questions, like, what are these feelings? Why are they here? And even, like, when it came to, like, bottom surgery and stuff, I'm like, no, like, I feel better. Like, having bottom surgery made me feel better. So where are these thoughts, like, coming from? And I didn't feel like I could really, or either that I couldn't or didn't want to talk about it publicly, or even I don't even know if some of my friends know that I went through this. I don't think most of them do. Because I also, at the same time as this was going on, I also was starting to use she, her pronouns instead of they, them pronouns. Like, I was feeling more comfortable with that. So there's this really weird thing, but I kind of, like, just felt like I wasn't giving myself permission maybe to be trans. But also just, I had a fundamental belief that, like, I wasn't really trans, even though all of the evidence suggested otherwise. It was a very confusing time for me, and I was trying to understand where my feelings were coming from, but it kind of goes back to that whole, oh, if you are trans or gay or anything like that, like, you're gonna wake up one day and realize that you're wrong. And there was so much fear and shame embedded into me that these feelings really started to pop up. For a while, I was like, why do I feel this way? Where is this coming from? What is this? Why? And then that was when I started learning to just be. And be like, okay, you know what? If I feel this way, let's try it. Not try it. I didn't like detransition, but kind of like, I would look at old pictures of myself or current pictures of myself and try to picture me differently or use he, him pronouns or, like, whatever, and, like, be like, do you actually like using he, him pronouns? No. Do you actually wish you had facial hair? No. And I could, like, visualize it, and it kind of, like, made more sense to me. And eventually those feelings kind of, like, went away, I guess. And, like, I mean, long enough ago that I don't really remember it, but every once in a while I'm like, oh my god, I really dealt with that. And I also started writing every day. I started typing on my laptop, just, like, random, like a diary, basically. Also, I didn't mention this in the actual video, which is why I'm popping up right now to say it. I made a YouTube video around the time that this was, or I probably made a few of them, but the one that I remember specifically is the one that talked about like embracing fear and like making fear my friend and like diving into it instead of pushing it away, because there was so much fear around transition being the wrong thing for me and like the fear of detransition. But also another thing that helped, which might sound kind of weird to some people, but I actually, I bought a Bible, and it wasn't because I was feeling religious, but I had so much fear in, like, Christianity being true and me being false or whatever, that I felt like I had to face that head on. And so I bought a Bible and I started reading it, and I literally only read like, I don't even think I made it through the first book of the Bible, but I read enough to realize that like the things in the Bible weren't things that actually aligned with me, but they were things that I was just afraid of. And it's like, once you like face your fear, it tends to be a lot less scary than you thought it would be. So I just want to put that in the video. And kind of just being like, you know what? If you want to detransition, that's okay. You don't have to be scared of that, you know, because I think that is like the biggest fear, I think, for a lot of trans people, or maybe not, maybe it's just me, but that like you're gonna regret it someday, and that detransition is the worst thing that could ever happen to you, and realizing that you're not really trans and that you made a mistake is the worst thing that could ever happen, and your life is over, and it's like horrible, and it's just like the worst thing that could ever happen, and it's a catastrophe. And I kind of had to like wrestle with that and be like, okay, well, if I do want to detransition, it's not the worst thing. Like, I've already transitioned. I've already been through a whole like gender change process, and it's not the worst thing ever. And once I was able to actually like look at detransition with like an honest view, instead of like the way that the church talks about transition and detransition, I was able to be like, wait, no, I don't actually want to detransition. But I had like rooted my, to some degree or in some way, I had believed that my identity was inherently a cis man, and that I just got confused along the way. Even though like my soul, my intuition, my heart didn't tell me that, my mind and my fears did. And as I worked through that, I felt more comfortable with making decisions, because I was like, oh no, like literally I made all these decisions to transition, and it really was the right decision. And when I listened to myself, it made me happier. And I also kind of changed my perspective on decisions, where like decision making doesn't have to be like this right or wrong, black or white, this or that kind of thing. You just make a choice, and then you learn something, whether that's like a hard lesson or an easy lesson. Every single choice you make comes with some type of lesson. Of course, try to be as like accurate as you can, or like as insightful as you can when it comes to your decision making. But it's okay to make a decision that you go, ooh, like that wasn't what I wanted. Also, if you're new here, I recently broke up with my ex a few months ago, which I'll get into in a minute, but you know, we dated for like a year and a half, and knowing them specifically as a person really like has changed me like for the better. And just I don't even know how to explain like the essence of who they are, but they are just always so willing to like follow their heart, always, like no matter what, even if it hurts people. And not like in a reckless way that's like mean or just like not caring about how it affects people, but like you do things the best you can. But if it's a choice between doing what makes you happy and doing what makes somebody else happy, they're gonna choose what makes them happy. And that is like a concept that's a concept that's like was hard for me to grasp, that it's okay to choose yourself. And because I'm like, oh my god, but like it could hurt somebody, and like yeah, it can, and it's okay. Like it's actually okay. you're not a bad person for choosing yourself, even if it hurts somebody else. Obviously do things the best that you can and the most like respectfully and like honest that you can, but there's nothing inherently wrong with choosing yourself. And that was an entirely new concept for me. And the term that they used was called clean pain, which I'm not sure where they heard that, but basically that like, yes, it can be painful for people, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a bad thing just because it hurts. And that really like changed the way that I saw things. And that was actually part of what helped me feel comfortable enough to break up with them, ironically, because I felt like we weren't connecting in the ways that I would want to with a partner, and like physically and romantically we didn't have that kind of chemistry that I was hoping for. And I thought maybe over time it would grow, because like it can happen sometimes, but it just didn't really happen with us. And there was also a lot of like gender and sexuality stuff mixed into that I think played a part in it. But it was really reassuring to be like, oh, like I can break up with them and I know that they won't fault me for it, even if they're hurt. And they were like proud of me for breaking up with them, which is like, sounds kind of crazy, but it was a really big deal for me to say, I'm comfortable in the life that I have, but I want something different. And so I'm going to make a decision to move towards that, even if it leaves something behind, and even if it hurts somebody. And it was a really good decision that I made, and I was am really thankful to have their support in that. I don't look at my relationship with my ex and be like, oh, that was a waste of time because it wasn't what I wanted, because I learned so much about myself. And like I kind of, I guess now see decisions as an opportunity to learn something rather than a like something like, I don't know, than like a binary like good or bad, good versus evil, yes or no kind of thing. It's just, they're like, decisions are just decisions, and then you just keep making decisions and learning until you die, and that's okay, and that's good. We're supposed to learn as humans. We're supposed to make decisions, and we're supposed to learn. We're supposed to grow, and you can't do that if you're never making a fucking decision. So that's what I learned. I had another situation present itself where somebody from my past, or whatever, someone that I used to be really close to and now we're just casual, don't really talk all that much, asked if we could be close again. And I was very honest that I had a lot of concerns with that, but I still wanted to be open-minded, because I even though I felt like my intuition was like no, but I also felt like I should hear her out and see if maybe my intuition changes. And we were supposed to talk recently, and then we never really did, but I felt comfortable with the fact that I was most likely going to say no, and I didn't feel bad or guilty about it. And I still don't, and if we do end up talking, I don't know if we will, but if we do end up talking about it, like I feel comfortable going into that and being like, I just don't feel like that's a good idea. And it's genuinely nothing against this person, it's just my intuition being like, no. And so, I don't know, I feel like, wow, like it's okay to say no. Like it's okay. And I'm like shedding these like anxieties or fears over like that kind of stuff. And that's felt relieving and like freeing in a lot of ways. It's also made me more excited about like going into the future. I had a realization like a month or two ago that I don't think I have ever initiated a relationship with somebody, romantically or friendship wise. Like unless maybe when I was a kid, but I was thinking about all my relationships, and every single one of them, I'm pretty sure they initiated. There's one that I may have initiated because I don't remember, but every single one that I can remember how it started, it was them coming to me. And all my friends that are in my life are there because they initiated with me first. And I love the people that are in my life. And I was like, wait, if I can have this good of relationships without making a fucking decision, how exciting could my life be if I actually made decisions? Basically, like, I'm like, oh, like I have a life that I feel happy with and feel proud of, and I haven't had to do very much to get there. And so it kind of makes me feel eager to like step out of my comfort zone and do stuff that I normally like wouldn't feel comfortable doing. Like one of the things, I don't know if I've actually talked about this on here or not, but like as you can see, I have a piano and 2 guitars and then like another 2 guitars upstairs that you can't see. But I've been writing music for like a very long time. I think the first song I ever wrote, I was in like 2nd grade. But I've been consistently writing since the pandemic, and I have had these goals of like actually having it materialize into something that like you can actually like listen to and it sounds good and it doesn't sound like a cheap ass recording in somebody's fucking bedroom. And I went and I got stuff to record stuff, I have stuff to produce stuff, but I realized I don't think I have a lot of desire to actually take charge in those areas because I've had this equipment now for like 2 years and I've rarely used it. So I realized recently that I need to go out of my way to try and find somebody who I can like collaborate with or whatever. And I feel a little bit nervous about that, but I feel excited about it, and I feel excited that I have to like do something and like move forward with something and make choices. And also when it comes to like romantic relationships, like I don't know that I want to really put myself out there yet because I just don't know if I feel like doing that. But I do know that there will come a point where like I do want to do that. I definitely do want to find more like sapphic friends, even if it's not like, you know, gonna lead to something romantic. It would be really nice to have sapphic friends. So I'm like, oh, I need to put myself out there and like go to these events or whatever. And it feels scary, but it also feels exciting. And that's how I know that I'm changing, because before it just felt scary. Making choices just felt scary. Sometimes paralyzing. But now it feels scary. And I haven't actually made the decisions yet that I need to make, but I can tell I'm like pretty close. And there's gonna be a day when I wake up and I'm like, okay, today's the day. And even like, okay, like not to get like too personal, but back in June, around the time that I broke up with my ex, there was also somebody that I was interested in, and we like talked for a little while and hung out a few times, and it was really, really nice. And then I guess, I don't really know what happened, but we just kind of stopped talking. And I reached out to her like a week or 2 ago, and I didn't hear back, which kind of sucked, but but I still felt like good that I reached out. And it's like weird because I do have a fear of rejection, like a pretty deep fear of rejection. So something like reaching out to somebody, not knowing if they're gonna respond, and then they don't respond, is something that does make me really nervous. And like at first it gives me anxiety, and I'm like, oh my god, like I just did this thing and now I might feel rejected or whatever. But like now it's been like a week or 2 since I reached out, I feel like, oh, like, no, like I'm glad I reached out, even though like nothing came from it. And I don't know, that's pretty cool that like I can get to a place of feeling just happy with the decisions that I've made regardless of the outcome. I don't know, decision making has just been so hard for me to feel comfortable with. And I think I'm just getting to a place where it feels peaceful to make decisions. And it's also just like a part of life. Like just make a fucking decision, just do it. And you don't have to be scared, or do it if you are scared, and then you'll like work through the fear. And I think I have been like not letting fear hold me back the way that it once had. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like my life has like consistently gotten better and better. Even though like from the outside, like when people are like, oh, like what do you do? I'm like, really not a lot. I'm disabled. I make YouTube videos like 3 to 4 times a year. I play piano and guitar. Not that great, but you know, whatever. I write lyrics and I go on a lot of walks. That's basically my life, but I really like my life. But I would like something more in regards to music to like kind of explore that. But yeah, like from the outside, my life probably looks pretty boring, but I'm happy with it, so that's what I care about. But yeah, I guess if you're like looking for advice as to like how to make decisions, I guess, or like how to feel comfortable with decision making or whatever, what helped me was working on myself. And like, I don't know, if I felt scared about something, instead of, you know, oh my god, I'm scared, I need to back away because it's scary, I've been more like, oh, I'm scared, let's like dive head first. And not just be like reckless, but to just like acknowledge it and be like, okay, it's okay to feel scared. Just try to be as honest as you can with yourself. If you're having trouble making decisions, start small with things that can't really backfire, or if they do backfire, it's not a big deal. I don't know, it depends where your starting point is, but you can work your way up to bigger decisions. But I don't know, learning how to make decisions is a very important skill that I feel like is not really taught or not really discussed or whatever. So anyways, if you made it to the end, let me know. I appreciate you. I am thankful that you watch my videos and find me to be interesting, and that you're excited to hear about my life and are rooting for me. I love that. So yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. See ya.